The right deserves better leadership. We deserve better leaders. A few weeks ago, there was this right-wing political commentator who got like a $10 super chat or whatever. And for some reason, he just started crashing out about like, I'm the leader. This isn't about you. This is about me. Just a really cringy ego trip. I'm not going to say his name because this is not about him. This just sort of inspired what I'm talking about here. And this video isn't about anyone in particular. Like, yeah, one pundit inspired me to make this, but leadership is a topic I have spent a lot of time thinking about and learning about, reading about, being bad at, having bosses putting me in positions of leadership. I've seen a lot of bad leaders, and I have seen very few good leaders. I would not trust this super secret mystery pundit to be my leader. I'm also not scared of people finding out who I'm talking about. Here are some clues. He has been canceled from almost everything, and Tucker Carlson attacked him. And also, this guy said Israel did not do the Charlie Kirk thing. So there's a few clues. Why would I not trust this guy to be a leader? Well, if you've seen the clip of him crashing out about how this is about me, it's not about you, you're nobody, then that's Exhibit A. That's not how I expect a leader to act. I've had those kind of leaders, and everyone always hates them. You might not hate him right now because you're just watching a show where he's entertaining and he says naughty words you're not supposed to say. But if he was giving you orders, if you had to answer to him, if he were your boss at a job, it would make your life a lot harder. It doesn't matter how much someone knows about any topic. Like, sure, if you're going to lead the paint department at a factory, you should know a good amount about industrial paint, sandpaper, flash times, solvents. You need a knowledge base. But just being the most knowledgeable guy about paint is meaningless if you can't communicate your knowledge to other people and get them to buy into why we need to do things certain ways. Like, why do we need to follow step A and then B and then C and then D? Why can we not screw with the order? Why can we not just skip step B? Can we? Why or why not? What are the scenarios where we can skip step B? Communicate that knowledge in a way people can understand. Don't be a dick, because otherwise your subordinates are going to look for hundreds of tiny ways to undermine you and the mission. When it's something like industrial paint, the mission is not very inspiring. But when it's something like the future of white civilization, and it's being led by a guy who thinks it's all about him, this was Trump's fatal flaw. Apart from him being blackmailed by Israel. When the leader thinks it's all about him, he's going to lose people. Okay, but I'm nobody, right? Let's turn to some actual leaders. We can call Jocko Willink a Zogbot, and you would be right, but he was a leader within the hierarchy of the military. He had dozens of men who followed him. His leaders entrusted him with positions of leadership. His ideas resonate with a huge amount of leaders in the blue-collar world. We have all had good and bad leaders, and Jocko is able to explain good and bad leadership in language that's easy to communicate. It's not some Harvard Business Review garbage, and it's not untested theory in some business book at Barnes & Noble. It's real stuff. So here's part of the foreword to extreme ownership. Of the many exceptional leaders we served alongside throughout our military careers, the consistent attribute that made them great was that they took absolute ownership, extreme ownership, not just of those things for which they were responsible, but for everything that impacted their mission. These leaders cast no blame, they made no excuses. Instead of complaining about challenges or setbacks, they developed solutions and solved problems. They leveraged assets, relationships, and resources to get the job done. Their own egos took a back seat to the mission and to their troops. These leaders truly led. So the key points I want to highlight there: take ownership of everything that impacts the mission, cast no blame, make no excuses, develop solutions and solve problems. Ego takes a backseat. That's 5 things. Let's go through them briefly. So the first one, take extreme ownership of everything that impacts the mission. This means anything that goes wrong, if I'm the leader, it's my fault. If I'm the leader and something goes wrong, it's my fault. You work for me and you didn't order enough hamburgers, and now we don't have enough hamburgers to sell. Typical leaders would blame you for not ordering enough, but if I'm a good leader, I have to blame myself. I did something wrong. Either I didn't explain to you the necessity of making damn sure we always have enough stuff ordered, or I didn't give you correct information about how much stuff to order. I put the wrong person in charge of ordering the stuff. Somewhere along the chain, I screwed up. Basic bitch leaders would yell and scream at you for us not having enough hamburgers. But who's really in charge here? Since I'm the leader, I'm in charge. And so this situation is my fault. That takes a huge amount of maturity to handle. It's very uncommon for leaders to do that. And this is why we all hate our bosses. 99% of them are basic bitches. It's about me. It's not about you. This pundit who I'm talking about is one of those 99% basic bitch leaders who nobody wants to work under. The next point, cast no blame. That kind of goes along with what I just talked about. It's not your fault that we can't handle what is going on in work right now. It's my fault. I didn't take enough initiative to set things up, to set us up for success. The third thing, make no excuses. I'm not shifting culpability. I'm actually saying the buck stops with me. And this is something that a lot of people on the right are failing to understand right now. They're crying about Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. Oh, they're terrible. We need to get rid of them. No, who hired them? Trump hired them. He is the leader. You're making excuses for him. They're doing what he told them to do. Okay, and then so in a work situation, like I'm going to explain to the boss everything that I did wrong. I'm not going to make excuses and be like, well, this didn't work because something. No, I screwed up. I screwed up the paint mixture and I had to throw away a whole gallon of paint. That was my screw up. I'm not blaming the team leader. I'm not blaming my trainer. This is my fault. When you can take full ownership of your mistakes like that, it shows your bosses and your subordinates that you are honest and trustworthy. You're honorable. You're not trying to hide all of your flaws. Here's how I screwed up and here's what I'm going to do so I don't screw up like this again. The fourth point I wanted to talk about was develop solutions, solve problems. Like I said in the last example, here's what I'm going to do to make sure that these mistakes don't happen again. And in situations where you find something wrong with a process, you don't just say, hey, here's something that's wrong. You say, here's an issue I've identified, and here are 3 possible solutions. We could do A, or we could do B or C. What do you suggest, boss? You're not bringing your boss a problem. Everybody else, all of your coworkers, all day, like they are all bringing your boss problems all day long. That's all they do. Here's a problem. You have to fix it. Fix this for me, boss. And the people above him are just giving him constant problems. Your boss is in a situation where the people above him and below him only bring him problems all the time. So you should bring him solutions instead. 3 possible solutions. I identified this problem. Here are the 3 solutions I think could work. What do you think? He can just pick one, whatever one seems the best, and then you implement it. When you do that, you get him on your side pretty quick. And then the 5th point I wanted to highlight is ego takes a back seat. When you do everything I've talked about here, you are putting your ego in check. You recognize when you screw up, you find solutions, you're not blaming other people. Everybody else, all of your coworkers, they're all caught for every moment of every day inside of their own stupid egos. So when someone is actually able to step outside of their ego, that is instantly a breath of fresh air. Guys, I'm not just pontificating here. I'm almost 40. I've had a lot of jobs. I'm telling you, when you do this stuff, you set yourself above everybody else. This does not just apply to work. It's for all aspects of your life. Your marriage, your relationship with your kids, or your parents or your siblings, your friends, at church. Let's go back to the book. Once people stop making excuses, stop blaming others, and take ownership of everything in their lives, they are compelled to take action to solve their problems. They are better leaders, better followers, more dependable and actively contributing team members, and more skilled in aggressively driving toward mission accomplishment. But they are also humble, able to keep their egos from damaging relationships and adversely impacting the mission and the team, unquote. You can do a bunch of great work. You can work your ass off and outproduce everybody else at the job. But if your ego is out of control, it will not matter how productive you are. People will hate you. And if you somehow get put into a position of leadership just based off how much you produce, the people below you will find any avenue possible to screw with you. I've seen it a million times. They use more material than they need just to screw with the company's budget. They screw things up on purpose. They call in sick as often as possible. You have probably had jobs like that. You probably have a job like that right now, and you might not even realize it. So go in the other direction. When you say, actually, this is my fault and here's why, it increases respect. Let's go back to the book. Jocko and his task unit were doing an operation in Iraq, and something went wrong. There was a blue on blue, which means friendly fire. One of the Iraqi allied soldiers was killed and a few were injured, and one of Jocko's guys got injured by a grenade. So this is clearly a terrible outcome. Some of Jocko's superiors had to come and do an investigation, blah, blah, blah. So in the debriefing, Jocko asked everybody, whose fault is this? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that gets guys fired. This can get you kicked out of the military. It could probably get you court-martialed. I don't know. So he said, whose fault is this? One of his guys spoke up and said, look, this was my fault. I didn't positively identify my targets. Another guy said, no, it's my fault. I should have been quicker to get on the radio. Another guy said, this was my fault because I didn't control the allied Iraqis and make sure that they stayed in their sector. And then finally, Jocko said, no, it's none of your fault. This is my fault. I get all the blame for this. I am the commander. I'm responsible for the entire operation. As the senior man, I am responsible for every action that takes place on the battlefield. There is no one to blame but me. I will make sure nothing like this ever happens again. So then they went through the entire operation step by step, and they identified everything that went wrong, and they talked about how to prevent it from happening in the future. Jocko writes, the full ownership I took of the situation actually increased the trust that my commanding officer and master chief had in me. If I had tried to pass the blame on to others, I suspect I would have been fired, and deservedly so, unquote. This also increased the trust that his own guys had on him, the people below him. Compare this to your boss. If you're like me, you've had a lot of bosses who do the opposite as much as possible. Everything is always someone else's fault. Nobody respects those guys. Nobody wants to work for them. Nobody gives more than the absolute minimum to those kinds of bosses and companies. Back to the book. On any team, in any organization, all responsibility for success and failure rests with the leader. We're not just talking about the military. Every team. Your family is a team, your marriage, you have to be a leader in those teams, even if you haven't been given the title of leader. Like at your job, you might not have the label of leader, but you should take that responsibility on yourself. Your boss, sure as shit, isn't going to do it. He's not watching this video. He's not reading leadership books. He doesn't care. He wants to clock out and go fishing. Obviously, this whole take responsibility on yourself, this only applies if you are going to stay at your job, if you believe in the mission, if you want things to improve at the company. Don't spend every second thinking about work, but just embody the spirit of ownership. If you care about your coworkers and you want them to make more money and have happier lives, you're a leader and you should act like it. Take leadership without being given the label of leader. By the way, it's super easy to go overboard with this. I have definitely gone overboard with it. There's a balance that's hard to find, and sometimes you only find it by screwing up a little bit. But that's the deal, right? Making mistakes is how we learn new skills. Leadership is a skill. Jocko writes, quote, the leader bears full responsibility for explaining the strategic mission, developing the tactics, and securing the training and resources to enable the team to properly and successfully execute, unquote. If you like your coworkers, start investing in them a little bit at a time. Give them something that will help them move forward with their missions in life. What's going on with them? What are they trying to accomplish? What are their interests? I'm big into books, so I try to find books that I think will be useful for people. Salary negotiation, stuff like that. If a piece of gear breaks, like a personal piece of work gear that they paid for, I will get them another one. Everybody can always use a Leatherman, you know? or an ergonomic keyboard. Don't break the bank. I know the economy is garbage right now, but tiny gifts are often more appreciated than you realize. You know those guys at your job who just totally suck, like they're bad at everything? Let's get back to the book. If an individual on the team is not performing at the level required for the team to succeed, the leader must train and mentor that underperformer. But if the underperformer continually fails to meet the standards, then a leader who exercises extreme ownership must be loyal to the team and the mission above any individual. So that means you have to fire the guys who can't get the job done or put them somewhere else. Wouldn't it be nice if bosses actually did that? Instead of making everybody else work twice as hard because you have to fix all of Ronnie's fuck ups, you just let Ronnie go. Don't just put him out on his ass. Help him fix his resume, help him be better at interviews, give him a decent severance package, even if he's a minimum wage nobody. That's basic morality. And if companies can't operate according to some kind of standard of civility, they need to go out of business. Vote for me and I will put those executives in prison for the rest of their lives. Back to the book. Such a leader does not take credit for his team's successes, but bestows that honor upon his subordinate leaders and team members. When a leader sets such an example and expects this from junior leaders within the team, the mindset develops into the team's culture at every level. Could you imagine how far the dissident right could go if they had that kind of leader? Not ego, just effectiveness. Not, this is all about me, this is not about you. Disgusting. Back to the book. Quote, when SEAL leaders were faced with worst-case scenario training situations, it was almost always the leaders' attitudes that determined whether the SEAL units would ultimately succeed or fail. We knew how hard the training missions were because we had designed them. And here's the vital piece of it. In virtually every case, the SEAL troops and platoons that did not perform well had leaders who blamed everyone and everything else. Their troops, their subordinate leaders, or the scenario. They blamed the SEAL training instructor staff. They blamed inadequate equipment or the experience level of their men. They refused to accept responsibility. Poor performance and mission failure were the result. Jocko goes on to say that the best performing units had leaders who took full responsibility. The dissident right is failing because they have no leaders. The Uniparty, the Democrats, the Republicans, they have leaders. They have a mission. They get the job done. They know their mission is to fly to Lolita Island and get blackmailed and then send unlimited money to our greatest ally. They don't come up with excuses for why they can't go to the island. They don't blame each other. They just go, they kiss the wall, they get filmed doing evil things, and then they make sure that you send them a third of your paycheck to bomb Christian hospitals in Palestine. That's leadership. Imagine if we had that level of leadership but for good purposes. Let's talk about the concept of no bad teams, only bad leaders. This is a difficult and humbling thing to think about, and since it is humbling, your boomer boss will never be able to embrace it. If a team is underachieving, it is not the fault of the team members, it is the fault of the leader. A piece of this concept is the phrase, it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. If you have people on your team who are not performing, it doesn't matter what you say. You can say all the right things about how the work needs to be done. This is how we need to do the job. But if the underperformers keep underperforming, eventually their bad attitude will infect other people. Poor performance will become the new standard. A lot of bosses love what they think extreme ownership is about. It's easy to go the wrong way with extreme ownership. It's easy to become an overbearing boomer-style boss who says stuff like, it's a privilege for you even to work here. I'm doing you all a favor by paying you. I give you employment. Work harder, faster, more. Take extreme ownership. Leaders will hear about the concept of extreme ownership and think, awesome, now I'm going to be able to whip those idiots into shape and make them work hard like I had to work in my day when I was young. People often overestimate how hard they worked back in the day, back in my day. I want to caution people against using these concepts in that way. That dead industrial revolution style slave driver thinking, that's over. Like, extract as much profit in the short term as possible. That's basically the religion of the boomers. If I could be a dictator, I would put those kinds of leaders into prison. No trial, just straight to jail. Go into the cage. There's a lot of confusion, it seems to me, among Christians of like forgiveness. Well, okay, well, I forgive you, and so there's no consequence. No, there needs to be consequences, right? Just because I forgive you doesn't mean you don't need to face consequences for what you have done. So I forgive you for being a boomer-style slave driver boss. I forgive you. Now get into the cage. Often when you find leaders who claim to love extreme ownership, it's just an excuse for them to squeeze their people as much as possible. Like, take ownership, you worms. That is subhuman mongrel behavior. We cannot allow that on the right. To be clear, boomers aren't all like this. That goes without saying. But boomers are like women. So whenever someone says, boomers tend to be this way, they'll jump down your throat and scream, not all, I'm not like that. That's not me. Okay, yeah, you're right. Not all boomers are X. Not all women are Y. Actually, I'm a woman and I'm not like what you're talking about. But I did have breakfast today. This is the kind of stuff said by people who can't follow the thread of a conversation. They can't think in the abstract. We got to just ignore those people. Oh, you think women are emotional? Well, I'm a woman and I'm way less emotional than most of the men I know. How many times have you seen that kind of comment? We're not talking about you. We're talking about boomers. Or we're talking about women. We're talking about the topic. You are not the topic. If you want to be the topic, make a video talking about yourself. I am not the topic. If the topic were millennials being useless shit libs, the correct response isn't like, well, actually, I'm a millennial. And no, the correct response is, yes, millennials are largely shit libs whose opinions don't matter. They were raised by boomers. They never stood a chance. If we can't recognize patterns, there is no point in even having a conversation. Like, we can't even use language without speaking in generalities. So this thing where people get offended, oh, you said boomers are like this and I'm not like that. Okay, we're not talking about you. This is a nice segue into the next section. The next thing I want to talk about, check the ego. Let's get back to the book. We're going to skip ahead to page 100. Quote, ego clouds and disrupts everything. The planning process, the ability to take good advice, and the ability to accept constructive criticism. It can even stifle someone's sense of self-preservation. Often, the most difficult ego to deal with is your own. Everyone has an ego. Ego drives the most successful people in life. In the SEAL teams, in the military, in the business world, they want to win. They want to be the best. That is good. But when ego clouds our judgment and prevents us from seeing the world as it is, then ego becomes destructive. Many of the disruptive issues that arise within any team can be attributed directly to a problem with ego. And let's skip ahead a few lines. We can't ever think we are too good to fail or that our enemies are not capable, deadly, and eager to exploit our weaknesses. Unquote. Our egos don't like any of that stuff that I said earlier. They don't like taking the blame, they don't like being wrong, and it becomes this vicious cycle. But it's not about us. It's not about our ego. It's about the mission. The mission is a safe country where people don't get stabbed in the neck just because they weren't racist enough. The mission is a nation that isn't run by satanic pedophile blackmail rings. That's more important than your ego. Also, infighting is gay. I'm not going to sit here and say don't punch right. The left-right dichotomy is false. It's designed to screw us over. But here's what I am going to say. Once you know what your mission is and who your allies are, don't punch your allies. That's easy to say, but it's hard to do. I have no idea who my allies are. I mean, if you're a sincere follower of Christ, maybe something can happen there. But if you're primarily about the white race, sorry, I want you to have your ethno state, and it will definitely be an amazing place, but that's not my fight. Anyway, if you can figure out what your mission is, that helps you know whether someone is your ally or not. So let's say you know your mission, and there are different groups around the country or the world working toward that mission. Here's what not to do. I'll take this example from my old job. I was in the paint department at a factory. We would get things from the prime department, and they would get things from the body shop, who would get things from cut and weld. Rather than working together, every team was its own island. Each team wanted to do as little work as possible. I mean, the job sucked, so I guess I'm not really blaming those guys. It's probably impossible to make a factory anything other than hell on earth, but here's what everybody would do. The guys in cut weld would do as little work as possible and then send the work to body. Body would do as little work as possible and then send the work to prime. Prime would do as little work as possible and then send it to paint. By the time the products got to us, they were so full of problems that we would have to put in extra work to cover it up. But my coworkers in paint had the same goal as everybody else: do as little work as possible. The teams were not communicating with each other, cooperating, trying to implement some process improvements. It was just, as long as the supervisor of the whole department doesn't yell at me, I don't care. I'm going to do as little as possible and then move on to the next product, because the company as a whole is always up inside our booties every day to go as fast as possible. The faster we go, the faster they need us to go. Like if we're able to get 5 of them done in a week, then magically they're going to say, hey, can you get 6 done next week? And then if we get 6 done, it's, oh, hey, can you get, can you do 6, 7, 8? Oh, hey, over in building 4, they're slammed. So they're going to send us additional work. Can you come in on Friday and Saturday? Again, it's the boomer mindset of extract as much short-term value as possible. Forget the long-term. The long-term doesn't exist. And by the time it rolls around, we will be retired or working in a different company. If you're getting PTSD from your current job as I tell this story, I apologize. This is what the boomers have left us as our inheritance. This is all the inheritance we're going to get from them. And they're going to tell us it's our fault because things were harder back in my day. You millennials and Gen Z, you have it so easy. And then their kids buy a house and they tell them the price, and the boomers either don't believe the price they're being told, or they tell you some irrelevant shit like, well, you're buying too much house. You don't need that much house. Thanks, Ronnie, but you grew up in a time when you could buy a house and raise a family on one income and barely even a middle school education. Thanks for opening the borders and putting women in the workplace and outsourcing all the jobs so the wages just go down and down and down. Thanks for buying up all the houses so you could be a landlord. What went wrong on the paint line? Apart from applying to work at a company run by boomers. What went wrong is that we were all disobeying an extreme ownership principle called cover and move. Jocko writes, often, when smaller teams within the team get so focused on their immediate tasks, they forget about what others are doing or how they depend on other teams. They may start to compete with one another, and when there are obstacles, animosity and blame develops. This creates friction that inhibits the overall team's performance." Unquote. If these companies were run by humans instead of parasites, they could let the different teams in the company talk to each other, let the accounting guys come down and explain their role, let them see what goes on in paint, let the body shop guys go see what happens in other departments, electrical, maintenance. But the only way for that to happen is for the American corporate culture to be vastly better than it is. I'm basically dreaming here. I'm envisioning a world that doesn't exist and can never exist under unfettered capitalism. People don't care. They want to clock out and go fishing. They complain about their salary all day, but if you explain to them how to get a raise, suddenly their eyes glaze over and they start drooling and snoring. He's dreaming about his Garmin Echo map. That thing can even tell you what kind of fish is beneath you so you know whether it's catchable. That's how people want to spend their time. That's human nature. We can't change it. But we can recognize it so at least we know what we're dealing with. And besides, I'm not really going to blame people for not wanting to put more effort into a garbage tier job. Let's move on and talk about decentralized command. Unfortunately for the dissident right, we can't do the second part of that, the command part of decentralized command. Any attempt by the right to form groups, it becomes 90% feds saying stuff like, hey, let's go blow things up. Oh, wow, thanks, dude. I didn't realize that the way we stop 1350 is by blowing up concerts. Wow, you're a genius. How can one man be so based? And anyway, I'm not a right-wing leader. I'm just a guy teaching a few things I know, a few things I've read about. I'm just trying to get more in line with what Jesus Christ wants. I don't know how to lead a political movement, but neither do most of the people who are currently blabbing about politics on the internet. You have these scrawny twerps who are like, I'm the leader, it's about me, it's not about you. Those people, if you want to follow them because they say naughty words on the internet, good luck. May God have mercy on your dumb soul. We're going to move on and talk about simple. An important concept when you want to influence people is to keep your message simple. This applies to instructions as well as to your political or religious philosophy. You need to be able to explain things in ways that people can understand. That's why I do my best not to use too many big words. Big words make people feel good. It makes me feel good to use them, and it makes prideful, book-smart people feel good when they hear someone else use a big word that they recognize. But there's a cost. And the cost of using the word and getting those nice, fuzzy, I'm so smart feelings is that 80% of the people who are listening to you won't be able to understand what you're saying. I like sounding like a smarty pants. I have a lot of pride, but I'm more interested in having people understand what I'm saying. Let's go to the book. Simplifying as much as possible is crucial to success. When plans and orders are too complicated, people may not understand them, and when things go wrong, and they inevitably do go wrong, complexity compounds issues that can spiral out of control into disaster. Everyone that is part of the mission must know and understand his or her role in the mission and what to do in the event of likely contingencies, unquote. Part of my mission is to get as many people into heaven as possible. I do this with words, I do this with videos, so I need to explain my concepts in simple terminology. And I know how puffed up my mission sounds, so I'm getting people into heaven. Look, I know I am not getting anybody into heaven, but it's a useful mental concept that helps me when I'm making these videos, and it seems like a worthy goal. Let's go back to the book. As a leader, it doesn't matter how well you feel you have presented the information. If your team doesn't get it, you have not kept things simple, and you have failed. You must brief to ensure the lowest common denominator on the team understands, unquote. All right, so maybe I need to amend my mission. Maybe I'm not smuggling people into heaven against their will, but I'm trying to keep people on the path. Basically, if you're already on the path to heaven, I'm just trying to give you encouragement to stay on the path. So my team, I guess, is Christians who are trying to stay on the path. I'm not doing apologetics. I don't do debates with atheists. I'm not trying to convert Muslims or Buddhists. My mission is to get myself and my loved ones into heaven and to help keep you on the path if you're already on the path. That's my team. So if my team, in quotes, if someone on my team is not able to understand what I'm saying, it's not their fault for being stupid. It's my fault for not communicating effectively. It's the same at work. If your boss and your coworkers can't understand what you're saying or why you think something should be done in some way, it's not their fault, it's your fault. Prioritize and execute. It can be hard to know what to focus on as a Christian, or more precisely, as a baby Christian. Those of us who became apostates and slowly came crawling back to Christ, we lost a lot of time that we could have spent evolving and growing spiritually. What flavor of Christianity is the right one? I don't know. They all call each other heretics. People say the Catholic Church is satanic, but some of the people saying that have lesbian pastors. And what do you focus on when you're back? Little season eschatology is popular right now, and that seems like it could have some impact on how you respond to things like the appearance of an antichrist or the mark of the beast. Christ says, "Do not be deceived," but how do we even know if we're being deceived in the first place? God allows demons to test us, so sometimes when we think God is telling me to do this thing, it could just be a demon messing with us. As a baby Christian, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what you should prioritize in your spiritual journey, but I'm just giving some general guidelines that seem good to me. So first, get a variety of perspectives. Understand what's going on in the dialogues between Orthodox and Catholics and Protestants. I don't know if we as baby Christians need to dive into the deep end and have an opinion on the filioque, but again, I'm a baby. There are people out there who think the filioque is an issue of immense importance. Who am I to say they're wrong? Next, read the Bible. Duh. Don't just listen to other people tell you what the Bible is about. I don't believe in sola scriptura, but if you're not reading the Bible yourself as often as possible, I think you are making a mistake. When you read the Bible, don't just go front to back. By the time you get deep into Exodus, your eyes will start to glaze over, and I heard Leviticus is even worse in that regard. The New Testament starts off strong. Every page of Matthew is a banger. You'll find something on every page that's like, I gotta remember that. When Jesus starts rattling off parable after parable, it's like an overload of wisdom. I mean, right at the beginning of Matthew, you have to get through the genealogy of Jesus, but that's fine. Compared to like the middle portion of Exodus, it's nothing. So anyway, I don't recommend going front to back with the Bible. Do it if you want, but if you're a baby, it's probably not the right move. Getting back to the parables, it's okay to let them wash over you without taking in everything. I mean, it's okay to just keep reading. Yes, you'll forget something. You'll forget something that seems very important, but there's something else just as good on the next page, and the next, and the next. Read it, reflect on anything that really hits you, and then just keep going. Next, fall asleep listening to the Bible. In our dopamine-addicted culture, people always have their headphones on. They always have their eyes on their phone. In the past, I would almost always fall asleep listening to a podcast, and now I have tried to replace that with the Bible. So if you're the kind of person who falls asleep with music or a podcast, try the Bible. Try falling asleep with just prayer. Anyway, that's prioritize and execute regarding your walk with Christ. Basically, the priority is to put more scripture in your life. And to me, that seems like a higher priority than diving deep into obscure theological debates. Now, if you have personal projects that you're trying to get done, like I am with these videos, it's obvious how prioritize and execute can help. Get your priorities straight regarding your projects, list the things you need to do, and then execute. So I have to write these videos, record the audio, put together visuals to go along with the story, and then upload. Along that whole chain of tasks, there are thousands of little pieces where I could get hung up. When I'm writing, I could get overly romantic about the words. I could try to make them sound as eloquent or impressive as possible. I could rewrite my videos 900 times. For the audio, I could spend hours researching different microphones. I could spend thousands of dollars making sure I have the best audio engineering. I could sink hundreds of hours into learning how to make amazing visuals. Every link in the chain has 1,000 little subtasks that I could agonize over. But what's the priority? I have things I want to say. I want to help people stay on the path. I want to publicly declare my loyalty to Jesus Christ so he doesn't say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Those three things are more important to me than learning how to do fancy animations. Prioritize and execute. So cutie pies, that is the end of today's video. Mwah, I love you. Let's get coffee sometime. I miss you. I'll see you later.